experienced fellow in 2018. And one of the things that we've had to do at my current school and then also at my past school is essentially build a program from scratch. And so those are some of the things hopefully that we can kind of talk about today and how to basically engage students in that. So you're able to make your program stronger. One thing that is about both of our programs, my current high school is a white minority school. We have 34 different languages spoken by our students. We are considered low socioeconomic. And so one of the things that we've really had to focus is how do we remove those barriers through engaging instruction so our students can be successful. And so right now, most of our students are on track. If they finish a program, they'll have their first year of the pre-med requirements done through Oregon Institute of Technology, which is our university partner. And in addition to that, our students can graduate with their medical assistant, emergency medical responder, pharmacy technician, and then also their personal training certifications as well. And so that's just a little bit about our program. We have all 4 high school Project Lead the Way courses in our program, and then also we have all of the middle school biomedical Project Lead the Way courses as well. And so my school is 6 through 12 with about 1,000 students. So Megan kind of introduced me as well, but just a little background. Again, I am a master teacher for Project Lead the Way, so I lead professional development opportunities for teachers across the country who are new to the curriculum and they need supports on how to basically institute those courses, because especially medical interventions and biomedical innovations, they're very lab heavy. And so that can be very overwhelming to someone that's new to the profession or doesn't have necessarily a healthcare background. And then in addition to that too, our program is only 5 years old, but we were unfortunately second place 3 years in a row for advanced CTE, the best health science program in the nation. And so I'm pretty excited to see, like, for being such a new program and being underfunded, some of the things that we've been able to accomplish at our school. Now, this is a presentation that we also did for another webinar for ACTE on their high quality framework. And so I was able to basically use that presentation for engaging instruction. And one of the things that we are going to talk about a little bit is how CTSOs and using problem-based learning can really help reduce barriers for students, but also keep them engaged into the curriculum and basically help them accomplish more than they ever thought necessarily academically possible. And I think that's one of the things that is exciting in my own students. Many of my students would necessarily be the ones that would be dropping out or be on the fray or significantly at risk. Yet our graduation rates continue to be right around 95 to 100%, despite all the obstacles that my students experience outside of school. In addition to that, one of the things that we can see based of and kind of the focus of my presentation today is really going to talk about how project-based learning and basically related instructional approaches, inquiry-based, challenge-based are fundamental to a healthy CTE program of study. One of the things that has been very intentional about our school and how we teach is we use case studies. And part of that's built into the Project Lead the Way curriculum. But part of it too is that we're also an expeditionary learning school. And so as an EL school, we're supposed to use case studies as an opportunity for our students to learn and master the material. In addition to that too, I think it's essential, especially for our program, but I know other programs in general, but instruction emphasizes the connection between academic and technical knowledge and skills. One of our hopes is that every one of our students has an opportunity to earn an industry certification, and the school actually pay for that and give that opportunity to every senior who wants it. And so we make sure that cost is not a barrier, especially because we are one of the lower income schools in the district. And so giving those opportunities for students to practice and utilize that technical knowledge. And then the other thing too, focusing on today is how instruction can be flexible and personalized to meet the needs of a diverse student population. One of the things that we had noticed in doing basically our own data and analyzing our students is that even if students were no longer receiving EL services or EL services, we are noticing that our non-native English speakers were scoring basically 3 to 4 points less on a 9-point test through Project Lead the Way. And we're trying to figure out how can we reduce some of those barriers and help students not only master the skills, but also perform better on standardized tests, because many of our students of color with diverse backgrounds will struggle on standardized tests, which could potentially make it so they have a hard time earning those industry credentials, since those are also our multiple choice standardized tests. And so those are kind of things that we really focus on at my school. There's 3 of us within the department, although we also teach science classes as well, so we're pretty stretched thin. But those are kind of things that we try to focus on and improving with our students. One of the things that also is our hope is using that project-based learning into the CTE classroom. And that's one of the things that I think has been essential in basically incorporating that high engagement into our students, and also making sure that we are removing all those obstacles. And so one of the nice things about project-based learning, which is really beneficial, is that it removes the barrier of language that many students might experience. And so because we are a diverse school, our students can actually demonstrate proficiency and mastery of skills in a much more hands-on thing, which also is more practical to job training or on-the-job skills that they're going to have to attain. The other thing too we really focus on is cross-curricular and enrichment opportunities for our CTE students. Our school, our high school, it has approximately 380 students, and we have about 100 students involved in HOSA, and so, which is the Health Occupation Students of America. And we've really been giving opportunities and focus on how HOSA can give opportunities for students to basically work on their and demonstrate knowledge, and actually give a chance for them to basically work on tasks and demonstrate proficiency on tasks that they may not be able to do necessarily in the classroom. And the last one too is, like I said, is really focusing on embedding sheltered instruction techniques into our classroom. And if you're not familiar with sheltered instruction, that's one of the things that is basically a model of teaching ELL students, where the classroom teacher is the primary source of support for students that have English as a second language or English language learners as well. And so basically giving them opportunities where they can actually access the curriculum and access the material has been extremely beneficial, of course, so that student engagement. One of the ways we really do that is focus on student talk, and also to really making sure that we have defined roles in our groups. And that actually is something, if there's information or things that you would like, feel free to let me know, and I can email it to you as well. But some of our language supports, and then also some of our team roles that we do for projects are things that we've actually gone and shared at different conferences as well. So one of the things that we see with project-based learning, and this is a pretty amazing story, and it was actually posted by Education Post, and it's Oscar's story. And one of the things that Oscar, which is really cool and basically transformational in his experience, is that Oscar was one of our students that likely was going to drop out. In Oregon, 1 out of 2 Latino males does not graduate on time. And we see that traditionally that population struggles with where is the application of that knowledge, and why is it going to be beneficial, and necessarily why would they want to come to school. However, we do have, even though our graduation rate in Oregon is right around 70%, and it's one of the worst in the nation, students who are involved in CTE programs in Oregon have a 93% graduation rate. And so Oscar is actually one of those students who his life completely turned around because of the project-based learning that is provided in CTE. One of the things that we were able to do as we built our program, my administrator just basically, I want you to dream big. And so we did, and one of our first purchases for our program was an 8-camera motion capture system by OptiTrack. And that's what you can see right now with Oscar putting on one of our students, is an opportunity for students to analyze human movement. And so Oscar was able to use his photography skills and his technology skills and actually did an independent study and came back as a classroom volunteer the following year and training students how to use this equipment as well. One of the things that, because I also teach biology and also health and advanced health careers, in addition to my Project of the Way classes, my colleagues and I have a hard time keeping up with our technology that we have. And so the other thing we've been able to do is basically select lab assistants and basically equip these students to be student leaders. And so they actually are responsible for becoming basically experts on a specific piece of equipment that we have in our biomedical lab. We also use Canvas as our learning management system. And so they actually are responsible for creating resources and YouTube videos and posting those links and posting those manuals that they create in Canvas as well. And that's one of the ways we've been able to basically increase our student engagement, is because our students see that as an opportunity for them to basically pass their legacy forward and to keep on going. And so we started a very small new program. Our program of study is only 5 years old. And like I said, we've been one of the top in the nation for the last 3 years. And it's because we've actually been able to transfer ownership to our students for the various pieces of equipment that we've had. And so one of the things that we also see too, and this is something that's inherent in the Project of the Way curriculum, but I see it as a really successful way to actually increase basically that student engagement as well, is that our program of study is really having that basically gradual release of control. Their freshman year, they take a course called Principles of Biomedical Studies or Sciences, and they learn basically it's forensic science. And they have they walk in on the first day of school, and there's a dead quote unquote body on the floor, and they spend all year trying to figure out how this person died. But it's still, the course is very teacher focused and teacher led. By the time they're juniors, they take a biochemistry class called Medical Interventions. And that class basically is extremely lab-based, and it has a strong online component. But in addition to that, the teacher is kind of stepped back from it. And there is a lot of student ownership and locus of control in that class. And by the time they get to me as seniors in my biomedical innovations class, I actually am more of a facilitator, and I do very, very little upfront instruction. And so we see that gradual release of control is an essential component in making sure that our students actually have that head knowledge, but also the skills and basically the problem solving things that we think is going to be important. I think that going back to that, I think that's one of the reasons why we've been able to basically focus on engaging students and removing barriers for them, is because they can see that basically that change in that gradual release as time goes on. And also too, it makes it so I'm not having to regulate necessarily student behaviors or things like that, because my students are always doing something in my class, which is pretty exciting. I don't know if this link will work, but I do want to show you a little bit about explaining what we do. One of the other things we've done for making sure we're engaging our students is we don't necessarily look at our top students, but we find students who we think would be great role models for our biomedical students in the middle school program, and they basically help mentor those students as well. So I'm going to go and click on this. I might have to share a different screen in order for it to work, but just to give you about a 3-minute clip of basically what are some of the things that we do in our program. Are you able to see it, Megan?
Not at the moment. Right now, it's still just your bullet points. Oh.
All right. Let me go ahead and change. I can select the screen.
Let's see.
All right. Is that better?
Yes. Now I can see it.
All right.
Is there volume with it, Jeff?
Yeah. Is it not working?
I do not hear it.
Oh, man. All right. Let me see if I can try one more time. It might be something that we just have to not do for today. But it is something that looks a little bit of a program. And like I said, one of the ways we've been able to also make sure that we engage our students is to really focus on the cross-curricular aspects, and giving students an opportunity to basically work through and get outside of the comfort zone. So the other programs that we have at our school, our school is 100% CTE, but it's computer science and then also engineering. And so
Sorry, your PowerPoint isn't back up.
All right, sorry. It's on my screen. All right. Let me go ahead and go back. I apologize.
No problem.
All right, are we good?
Yep, it's back up.
All right, so, but one of the things that we've also been able to do is really focus on getting students outside their comfort zone and involved in other programs of study. And so even though my senior capstone course is the biomedical capstone course for our health science program, about a third of my students actually are engineering students who have never taken a biomedical or health science class before, but they come in and take our senior capstone course as their first CTE course. One of the things that has been really instrumental in doing that is I think that it's been an awesome experience because our engineering students actually have to apply themselves, and they actually have to work because they are outside of their comfort zone. Whereas I think by the time my seniors in my health science program of study, they can easily become complacent. And doing that, they sometimes actually take that for granted of what they didn't have to study necessarily. And so in reverse, I actually encourage a lot of our biomedical students to take the senior engineering capstone course as well. And ironically, this past year, our top our health science student was actually an engineering student, and the top engineering student this year was actually one of my health science students, because it actually encouraged those students to get outside the comfort zone, apply themselves, and actually many of them actually had to study for one of the first times ever, just because necessarily school has come easy to them. Other things too we see, but again, it's really working on enrichment opportunities. So we also work with OHSU, which is the only medical school or med school in Oregon. And so we did a diabetes connectathon, and basically had students design their own basically interventions, and also basically how they would necessarily solve a task or deal with future basically treatment of diabetes. And one thing that was really cool is actually a group of our students actually finished that program with a patent, which is something that was pretty cool to see as 17-year-olds. The other thing too that we've been able to do is really work on, again, basically embedding that certification opportunities for our students. One of the things that for some of our students, maybe necessarily they don't have the hope of attending college because of their family circumstances. And so we've really been intentional about telling our students that if you get hired at a hospital as a medical assistant, there's a good chance of opportunity that they're actually going to hire you and maybe potentially pay for your training to become a registered nurse as well. And so really encouraging students to think about the academic journey they take and the career journey, and understanding too that it often it's better sometimes to go that route so you're not massively in debt, and also you get the experience as a medical assistant before you go into nursing school as well. The other thing too, it's been an essential part of our program is that we have an enrichment program through Kaiser Permanente where our students actually attend a session at our local Kaiser hospital one basically evening a month. And those students actually work with a professional over a 2-year period of groups of about 15 or 20 students. And so they get out practice like putting casts on each other, or go ahead and do certain kinds of physical therapy skills. They get an opportunity to go see a labor and delivery room. And so really focusing on those enrichment opportunities and exposing kids to other healthcare professions, which is a big thing because everyone comes into our program thinking they're all going to be doctors or surgeons, but really trying to educate them and figure out don't get discouraged, because you know that's only going to be a small section of the population that can actually accomplish that. But there are other opportunities that are just as engaging and just as basically exciting for them to pursue later on in life. In addition to as well, one of the things that is really essential as we are focusing on our program and basically how we're going to maintain our engagement is basically making sure that we're using current research and findings into our instruction, really making sure that we can bring those health professionals into our school for our advisory committee. And also too, a big part of that is just educating our community on what our students can actually accomplish. And by our students having that increased efficacy and that increased basically opportunities to interact with medical professionals, it gives them an area of confidence. And as they're doing that, they can actually create amazing connections later on in life as well. Going into as well, one of the things that, as I mentioned, that we have been very intentional on as a school is working on sheltered instruction. And so there are several programs that you can see there, and you can see my students actually having those cards as well in front of them. And so EL Achieve was a program that we used to use, but we still use similar school-like skills and components actually into our classes. And so this is a group of seniors, and I honestly never thought that my students would ever engage in things like this. Like they would think that the cards were juvenile, or they're too mature for that. But it is actually amazing, because even our shy students, or even my engineering students who traditionally don't like talking, it gives them opportunity, and it challenges them to basically go through and share their thoughts. And one of the things that has been really beneficial in going through is that those students basically can have an opportunity to share and verbalize things, because a lot of our English language learners need that opportunity to process language verbally because of some of the barriers that they actually have in the classroom. Other things that we've been able to do too, and that's been extremely helpful, is we have had peer tutors to really help students that might need that help, especially if we know that students have learning disabilities or other barriers that could affect them as freshmen. And so we've really been making sure that our seniors have an opportunity to give back to the underclassmen as well. We also too have been very intentional about designing a school with a culture that is respectful. And so that's a big part. And some of our students actually have been able to attend school with each other for, by the time they have, or in my class, for 7 years together. And so that's been a big part, as well as recognizing our differences and going through as they progress. The big part too, that's been, I think, one of the biggest payoffs in our school is really that focus on collaboration, and understanding that you're able to accomplish great things when you're working in projects, and have those opportunities to basically problem solve, because as we know, so much of our life and what we do doesn't have a necessarily right or wrong answer, but they actually can go through and process as they get to those points. That actually comes back to kind of one of my last couple of slides that I have for you. But embedding that student talk is an amazing way to increase that formative assessment. As Megan said, I am a studio teacher for Beaverton School District. And so I have teachers that will come to my room and see some of the things that we do, mostly around Jeff Wheeler's work from Stanford on how do you actually effectively teach English language learner students. In addition to that, we've had the opportunity to go through and really focus on basically making sure that students are engaging in every lesson. And so that's why one of the things that I've done too is had defined roles based on where they're sitting. And so maybe one person is always, for a short period of time, is always going to basically be the person that coordinates the lab supplies, or one person's always going to be the reporter for the group. One person is always going to be the facilitator for the discussions. And so that's one of the things that we've been able to make sure that we keep the engagement of students, but also making sure we have student ownership by the time they're seniors. One of the things that has been beneficial too, as we know as educators, is like when the teacher does an announcement in the middle of class, you lose that momentum. And so one of the things that we've been very intentional with our juniors and seniors is do huddles and only bring back 1 or 2 people from each group if we do have to do an all-class announcement, so we don't interrupt that flow. And that's one of the things that, you know, we see with research similar to like the students when they're texting, that as soon as a student looks at their phone, we know that it usually takes them 5 to 10 minutes to get back to that area of focus where they were before they had the distraction. Well, teachers doing basically an upward announcement is very similar in that regard. And so that's one of the ways that we've been able to maintain our engagement is really focus on our basically classroom management skills and what are some of the routines that we have there as well. The other thing too has been really beneficial is because we are a low-income school, if you haven't heard about Sprint has an amazing program that they actually donate 1 million Wi-Fi hotspots to families across the country each year. And so we've been really intentional. We are a one-to-one school where every student has a Chromebook, but also too making sure that every student in our district, we are one of the largest districts in Oregon at about 45,000 students, but making sure that every student has access to Wi-Fi and that technology is not going to be a lack of technology or lack of internet access isn't going to be a barrier. And so that's one of the things also that's been a crucial part. Again, as well, really focusing on our CTSOs and using our CTSOs as opportunities for students to apply their knowledge. And that's one of the things too, our HOSA program is relatively new, but that's one of the things that's been beneficial as well as we built our program. And so our HOSA program has received national honors the last 3 years as well as an outstanding chapter through the HOSA competitions. The other thing too is really focusing is how do we limit or how do we basically eliminate any opt-out opportunities for students in class? And so really focusing on having those defined roles, as I mentioned, and using formative assessment and using student talk and having those routines, it's been transformational in our program because we were able to see that students don't have an option to blend in. And especially our students, like I said, that are ELL students or students that receive special education services, those are some of the first ones that might check out on a heavily language-based course. And so we've been really able to focus on keeping those students engaged with the various techniques that I mentioned earlier with sheltered instruction. And then last thing too, if you aren't familiar, which I know Megan has sent this information as well, but ACT has some amazing skills and resources, basically sharing some of that stuff about high quality CTE Initiative. And so that's actually, we were asked to share this PowerPoint with them for a webinar that's actually going to be posted on their website later on as well. But just encourage you to use their resources as much as possible. If you are going to Vision, my colleague and I will be presenting again. And so I think we've presented last 3 years. And so we'll be doing presentations and sharing some of the things that we are doing with our students and basically creating opportunities so every student can be engaged and have access to high quality curriculum. So that's basically all that I have. I really appreciate you guys joining me today. And if you have any questions, I'll gladly answer those at this time.
Okay, Jeff, this is Megan. Thank you so much for your presentation and your time. Again, if you guys have any additional questions and you'd rather email them, feel free to reach out to myself or Jeff, and I'll get your questions over to him. Thank you, Jeff, for your time and your effort. We really enjoyed your presentation, and I appreciate this last slide as well, shouting out to ACT's work on this initiative as well. I want to remind everybody that our next virtual discussion is on September 19th at 3:30 on work-based learning. And also, if you're interested in presenting as Jeff did today, please feel free to reach out to me. We would love to have more presenters. And this presentation will be posted to our Educators in Action website in the next day or two, so you will be able to access it. Thank you again, Jeff, for your time, and thank you everyone for joining this presentation today. Thanks again, Jeff.
Thank you.